Hello, my name is Michael and I'm a composer of classical music. Orchestration, in fairly simple terms, is the selection of an instrument or instruments at any given moment in the piece that you're writing. It might be a solo instrument or be working in combination with one or two members of the same family, like woodwind or brass, or an instrument might be part of a much larger moment in an orchestra, like a full orchestral chord. And so actually, at any one moment, you're working both horizontally and vertically with these instruments in the process of orchestration. The actual choice of instrument will also depend on the type of piece, the mood that you're trying to convey, and all sorts of other factors like the balance. Now, learning all this and absorbing it, the information, is actually quite tough, particularly because really getting knowledge and experience in the live situation can be quite hard to achieve. So often students and people learning the beginning of orchestration are referred to certain books, and for example the Rimsky-Korsakov book on orchestration, and that teaches you things like which instruments work well together, how they can be layered, how they can support each other, and many, many other factors. So let's turn to some music. And I'm just going to begin with a single line. This is just three phrases played by the clarinet. And you'll hear that they develop slightly, but the thing that I'm interested in is what happens after these phrases. So here they are, first of all, just on their own. So I wanted to introduce another instrument before the clarinet had fully completed its line. Now, given the peaceful nature of the music, there would have been quite a range of instruments that could have been used, but I decided to stay with the wind family, and you'll hear in the next sample that the bassoon comes in towards the end. It does in fact use the material of the clarinet, but has to use it in a much reduced way so that the two instruments end at the same time. And you will also hear just towards the very end, I introduce the double basses because they just give a hint of tension that is going to develop out of such a gentle and peaceful opening. And also, they match wonderfully the clarinet and bassoon. We could see that they all get on very well together and are not going to challenge each other. So let's have a listen then to the way that the bassoon enters towards the end of the clarinet line, and finally the double basses. So let's turn to what happens next. I wanted to change the mood completely, and so you will hear three orchestral chords which grow in strength. But to link them from that quiet, gentle passage, I've used tremolo strings which crescendo quite quickly and sharply to introduce the first orchestral chord. They're then linked by just a handful of notes to a second, more stronger. And then there is a third link to the final of the chords. And that link is interesting because I've used the oboes instead of the trumpets because I still didn't want to give it at its absolute maximum. But to drive it on, you'll hear that the double basses and cellos do take quite a strong role in moving the music to that third climax. And even then, it's not at its maximum because there follows a return to the gentler feel to the music. And there are lots of fragments going on. You can hear the clarinet and the oboe and other instruments making little interjections like the very opening of the piece. And this is all glued together by the harp, which often plays a very important role in orchestration. But what this does do is allow us to get to the fourth and strongest of all orchestral chords. And then you can hear the importance of the brass in making this happen before it tails off at the end of the music sample. So let's have a listen to that passage, starting from the chords and the violins and other strings which come in with tremolando to start to change the mood. So let's have a listen to both sections, one following the other, so you'll see how they're linked. But before I play it, I'll just say a few words about the piece itself. Called Age of Wonders, it was written for the 200th anniversary of the birth of Charles Darwin, and as befits Charles Darwin, it evolved from a work for violin and piano to string quartet to string orchestra, and then this was the orchestral section which closed the whole work. It was based on some little motifs, both melodic and harmonic, that appeared in the earlier sections of the work. And as with evolution itself, it was not decided which would develop into something important and others would just fade away, perhaps even after looking like they were going to be more important than actually what they were. So there was a terrific parallel between the science of evolution and the music itself. So here we are. It's the opening of Inheritance from Age of Wonders, played by the Philharmonic Orchestra conductor Stuart Stratford.